Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Solutions, Not Just Problems. We are your co-hosts, Vanessa K. and Be Real. Be Real, how you doing today?
Hey, things are going great. So we have a special guest today, which is great. First time we've had a guest on the show, on the podcast, let's call it, and looking forward to it.
Yes, with May being Mental Illness Month, we're focused on mental health today. So today's series or show will be mental health. We may not be able to get through the whole show, but we're gonna sure take a try, stab at it because we got a whole lot of information to share. But we will try to get through it. We want to welcome Crystal Hall. Today, we are honored to welcome Ms. Crystal Hall, a respected expert in the field of memory care. Crystal is a graduate of Southern Wayne High School. She's in the class of 2001. We're in the 19, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey,
She continued her education at Wayne Community College. She is a certified nursing assistant, or CNA, with over a decade of dedicated experience working with individuals affected by dementia. Currently, Crystal is part of the Bayada Home Care Team, where she continues to provide compassionate and informed care for those in need. Beyond her professional accomplishments, Crystal is a devoted mother of three and deeply values family. Her hobbies naturally revolve around her children, and she enjoys spending time near the water, whether it be the beach, the lake, whatever. Wherever there's water, there's Crystal. Crystal also has a passion for travel and exploring different cultures and cuisines. This is the warm, engaging personality that earned her the name in our family as Cousin Crystal. Over the past 2 years, I've had the privilege of getting to know Crystal personally, and she has become a close and trusted friend of mine. As a caregiver myself, I've come to understand the emotional and physical demands of supporting a loved one with Alzheimer's and dementia. Crystal's proactive, empathetic approach has made a significant impact on our journey. She keeps us informed. She helps us prepare for the future and significantly reduces the stress in our household. Thank you, Crystal. I am deeply grateful for her guidance, support, and friendship. It is with great appreciation and respect that I welcome Crystal Hall to the SNJP podcast. So, with May being Mental Illness Month, we're focused on, like I said, mental health. Mental health encompasses our emotional, physical, and social well-being. It influences how we think, feel, and act. Everyone houses mental health, but it's important to understand while we all maintain mental health, it is not the same as mental illness. Most illnesses are treatable, and individuals can function normally on a day-to-day basis when the illness is properly treated. In today's environment, some of the common mental illnesses or diseases are depression, anxiety, ADHD, ADD, bipolar syndrome, PTSD. Terminal diseases are like Alzheimer's, dementia, and severe illnesses look like schizophrenic, multiple personality disorder. So, Crystal, what is mental illness in your opinion?
Chemical imbalance in your brain, especially with ADHD and ADD. You find that in children as they grow up. Schizophrenic and PTSD comes from something that's happened tragically. Whether you're in the service, a lot of service people actually get PTSD. If something happens in your life, you can actually develop PTSD as well. As far as schizophrenic, sometimes you're born with it, and sometimes you develop it over time. If there's tragedies that you cannot get over, such as losing a parent or losing a child, you can actually develop bipolar, schizophrenic. Sometimes you're born with it, sometimes you're not. As far as Alzheimer's or dementia, there's several different types. It can be hereditary, or you can actually fall and bump your head and develop dementia later on in life. You also have your post-radiation dementia, which if someone with cancer goes through radiation, they can also develop it. So there is several different types of dementia, Alzheimer's, mental illnesses out here. Unfortunately, dementia and Alzheimer's is terminal. And it's nothing that you can come back from. And it's just like you're going back to your childhood. You forget how to eat, walk, talk, bathe yourself. You don't recognize yourself. Unfortunately, you see, like if I have it and I'm looking in the mirror and I don't recognize myself, I'm thinking somebody else is standing right there with me because that's not me. So it's several different types. You can live with it for 10 to 15 years, just depending on what type of dementia and Alzheimer's that you have. As far as schizophrenic, bipolar, if you're treated properly, it can be controlled. But if you go unmedicated, it's not good. It's not a good thing because they can't control that. So to me, if you have a mental illness or especially depression, very treatable. A lot of people say, well, why are you so sad? You know, what happened? This ain't real. It's real. Depression is real. Just like when I lost my dad, I was depressed, of course. That was my dad. But there's several different, you can go to therapy, you can be treated medically. But it's not long term. Like you can actually be treated for depression, take your medication, and once you've come to terms with what has happened in your life, you can actually go back to being your normal self. So it's several different types of mental illness.
Some of the signs and symptoms that we can look out for when we're watching for a loved one when it comes to mental illness is changes in mood. That looks like sadness, irritability, highs and lows, changes in behavior, withdrawal, increasing and decreasing in sleeping patterns or eating appetite, difficulty concentrating. Changes in thinking, excessive worry, confused thinking, delusions, hallucinations. Physical symptoms look like fatigue, unexplained aches and pains. With that said, we're going to stop for a quick break, and then we're going to come back and revisit and talk with Crystal. Welcome back, everyone. So, Crystal, is there anything that we can do to prevent mental illness?
Actually, no, because it's like I said, it's a chemical imbalance in your brain, such as ADHD, ADD. There's nothing you can do to stop it. You're kind of born with stuff like that. And as far as dementia and Alzheimer's, there's nothing you can do, tragically. And as far as schizophrenic, bipolar, um, everything that we have pretty much named out there, I mean, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You can't stop it. Depression, if you change certain things, maybe your diet, you can really change your diet for depression, the way you live, the people that you're around, and even my friends or your friends can bring you down, right? So if you change your environment, that can help you feel better. That can help you with your depression.
Speaking of depression, are there like different levels of depression? Like some people, like you said, your lifestyle change or, change of activities, friends can bring your depression down. But is there chronic depression where you just can't get rid of?
Definitely. And, a lot of times, if you have chronic depression, we are in mental health. I don't know if I can, but a lot of times when people are depressed, all they think about is taking their own life. And there's really nothing, a lot of times when it happens, when they're thinking about it, a lot of times they do it. I mean, I know a lot of people that it's happened to, a lot of families. No medication, no therapy, nothing can help these people. And it's sad because a lot of them nowadays are young, if you look at it. A lot of people who are taking their life are young now. And it's because they don't know how, they were never taught the way of life correctly. To me, that's how I feel about it. You were never taught how to grow up. You were never taught how to live without your mom or your daddy. Even people who lose kids, or, they don't know what else to do. This is what they know. And so when somebody passes away, a lot of times they don't know how to get up the next day and start their life over, because that's pretty much what you have to do.
So in that moment, when they take their life, they're at their lowest end. They might not be treated, but can they be treated? Let's say for some reason somebody got to them and they talked them off the ledge. Can they be treated to kind of come down with that?
They can try. They can try. And, to me, suicide is kind of a hard subject. But if they get the right treatment, the right help, some of them can be saved. I really truly believe, but it's going to take a extensive amount of help. Like, I'm talking locked up somewhere to where they cannot, get out and harm themselves. And that's what eventually happens to people who can't control their depression. And then some people, when they're depressed and they do go to these places to get help, they're not helping them. They're doing more harm to them than they are helping them. And that's something that we don't look at either. Society don't look at that either. Yeah, I'm gonna, call and have this person committed. No, it's not helping them. These people are mistreated every day in these places. And that's just something that it's just trying to prevent them from taking their own life. But at the end of the day, these people are getting more harm done to them than good. And I truly believe that.
Right.
And, other PTSD, and that really stems from you being in the military. That's where that comes from. They go over there and they see a lot of things that me and you, we don't never see, right? And so they come back and they don't know how to move on from that. But that's just with anybody with a tragedy, something tragic happens to them. Broken heart syndrome is definitely
broken heart syndrome.
Yes. Like, that's definitely, you can really pass away from that.
Yeah.
I actually had an uncle, his mama passed away and he could never get over it. And 6 months later, he passed away.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with them. And the doctor really said broken heart syndrome is a thing. And a lot of people's like, no, that's not true. It's true. Like, it's really something. And unfortunately, a lot of people, bad things happen to them and they never get over it. Like, they don't know how to pick up from what happened to them yesterday and move on tomorrow, with a new way of thinking.
So leading into, the next question, how do I know if I'm unwell? How do I know if I have, if I'm suffering from mental illness? So, I'm going through some things, and is it different levels to it? In other words, I know there's major depression, like what you're saying, people that come back from the military. But suppose I'm just, dealing with something where perhaps I had a death in the family, or perhaps, broke up with a girlfriend, or financially things aren't going very well. That can,
Absolutely.
you can spiral out of control as a result of that.
That's a big one.
How do I know if I'm unwell? What are some of the symptoms?
Okay, so number one is your judgment is going to be off. You're not thinking clearly. You're restless. You can't sleep. You don't feel like going anywhere. You're always tired, but you can't sleep, right? You just can't stop thinking. You're overthinking. You may lay down in the bed and try to go to sleep, but your mind is going 1,000 miles a minute and you can't sleep. You may doze off, but you're going to wake right back up, right? So that's the number one thing is I would say is like yesterday you were up, you were feeling good, you were not feeling tired. But then today I'm in my depression mode, right? And I don't feel like going nowhere. I don't want to talk on the phone. I don't want to watch TV. I don't want to see nobody. I got all my windows closed in my house. Um, that's when you know that either you need to talk to somebody,
Mhm,
you know, you need to go see a therapist, you know, because you're in your beginning stages, right?
mhm,
The earlier you get help, the better off you'll be, right? Because when you wake up today and you're feeling bad, like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened to me, immediately get help, immediately talk to somebody.
And I think that's a taboo that we have to get out of our heads. That
Mhm,
going to talk to somebody is there's something wrong with it. It's
mhm,
wrong, you know, something's wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with this seeking help and getting a professional's advice. You know,
right.
one, they're unbiased. They're giving you an objective point of view. And sometimes we just need to talk through things
Mhm,
and get it off our chest.
mhm. I agree with
You
that.
know, I can say that I've noticed that there's been, less of a stigma attached to people who are suffering from mental illness. And I think that people have a lot more empathy and they're a lot more understanding when it comes to people that are dealing with issues.
Mhm,
Um, and I think one of the problems that people may have is if someone's not willing to go get help, okay, that's when it becomes a difficult thing. When you're seeing that person spiral out of control, and rather than going to get help, they just continue to just fester in it.
mhm.
And what are some of the suggestions as to someone who refuses to get help? Are there um, uh, anything that you can do to maybe get them to take action? Let's say.
Well, you can actually talk to somebody until you're blue in the face, right?
Mhm.
Um, but as long as they're in their right mind, and I say that where they're not diagnosed with anything like dementia or Alzheimer's, there's nothing me or you could do to force them to get help.
Mhm.
Because even if you were to go up to the your local police station and say, look, such and such is going through such and such and they need help, unless they're willing to go get help, there's nothing legally that they can do about it. So there, you know, and it's sad and it's unfortunate because I feel like there should be a law saying, look, if my significant other or my family member needs help, I feel like y'all should be able to at least take them and have them, you know, treated or, you know, try to get some help. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So unless they're
Yeah. So
willing to get help, there's nothing we can
so
do.
you couldn't have someone committed. I remember back in the watching old Perry Mason where they'd have the husband would have his wife committed and she'd be in the sanitarium. Not to be funny, but
Yeah.
I've seen this. I'm like, okay, and all they had to do was come up with specific reasons as to why they thought that person was dealing with mental illness, and they could have that person committed. So that's not something you could do today.
Unless they are harming themselves physically or harming you, no.
Okay, so they have to actually be committing a crime in order for
Correct.
you
Correct.
to have just cause. Okay.
Mhm. Yep. So if I was to say Vanessa, she's going crazy, right?
I am. Stop telling my secrets.
And I call 911, they're going to come out here and they're going to talk to her.
Yep.
But unless she tells them I need help,
Hmm.
and she hasn't physically hurt herself or me, then they're
Hmm.
not going to take her. See,
So
so
that's a key word. I need help. A
yeah,
person actually
I need
saying, and then they'll take action. Okay. Next question. What are some of the typical treatments for mental illness? Now, I've heard of people that are actually, smoking
yeah.
uh, marijuana, medical marijuana.
Mhm.
Is that something that you find has been helpful, along with some of the other drugs like I think it's Zoloft or some of the other drugs that you're using to help with mental illness. But I'm really curious about the marijuana piece because I have some people that
We
are
all
in
are.
my uh,
We all are.
no, I'm because I know that a lot of people feel uncomfortable taking some of the prescribed drugs.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And as an alternative, I'm thinking, have you seen more progress or more people who have been able to get help via marijuana as opposed to prescription drugs?
Well, me personally, I prefer for someone to smoke than
Hmm.
to take the prescription because the prescription drugs actually make you look and feel like a zombie, like you're just staring, right? You're
Mm.
not communicating, you're just going deeper and deeper into depression. That's how I feel. Now, the marijuana, the medical marijuana, it's not legal here yet. So we don't,
Hmm.
we can't see if it works, right?
Yes.
But I have heard that a lot of people are doing that versus the actual prescriptions. And I have to agree. I mean, I feel like I think we would see way less mental illness if
Hmm.
the whole world could get medical marijuana, like, and it makes you comfortable, it eases your mind. um and I feel like you would see more of a progress with that versus the medication alone.
And I come from a state, Rhode Island, where it is legal, you know, and the line is around the corner,
Yeah.
in terms of the medical and also the recreational as well.
Right.
But you see a lot of people getting prescriptions, and so I just kind of threw that out there. But in addition to the marijuana, what are some of the other typical treatments for mental illness? What are the more traditional type of treatments that
Pretty
people
much.
can take part in?
Pretty much just therapy and
Meds.
medication, and that's about all that. And of course, if you're really to the point to where you need to be committed, the state, you would belong to the state, but the state would commit you, right?
Hmm.
Which is the worst thing that could possibly happen. But other than that, there's no other treatment for that because we have depended on medication so long for several different illnesses. That's the first thing they do. They don't try to talk to you. They say, here, go get this prescription filled and you'll feel better. That's how I look at it. And that's what therapists do. Here's some medicine. Go take this. Make sure you stay. And I don't like stuff like that because you're turning them into someone that they're not. A lot of it, you either sleep all day or you're just sitting there looking. Um, you can't function like a normal person. So
But that's in specific
And
sicknesses, right? And illnesses. That's
that's
not like, like a bipolar
it
person.
is.
They can function daily, can they, on their meds? Or
It depends on what they're on
mm,
because a lot of bipolar, schizophrenic, PTSD, depression, they take the same medication.
mm,
So,
so bipolar is basically the highs and the lows.
right.
People have extreme highs and extreme lows.
Yep.
Um, and can that be regulated or
It,
diminished
it
uh, as a result of medication? And you find that it's helpful?
bipolar is forever. Once
Mm.
you're diagnosed with bipolar, let me make this clear. Once you're diagnosed with anything from a doctor, it
Hmm.
is on your record for the rest of your life,
Mm.
medical record. So let's just say I go to the doctor and they say, "Oh, Miss Hall, you're bipolar." From that day forward, anybody that looks at my record, they're going to see that I'm bipolar. I don't care if I'm handling it good, I'm doing good with it, I'm taking my medication. I'm known as being bipolar, just like a kid in school with ADHD. When they diagnose these kids with ADHD, they will be marked from the time they're diagnosed to the time they graduate. They're going to be labeled as a bad kid because they have ADHD.
And that's what we have to stop.
Mhm.
We have to keep this going, this awareness going, because those conditions aren't any different from somebody having diabetes
Right.
or high blood pressure,
Right.
or you know, it's a condition that we're dealing with.
But you cannot get rid, you can control bipolar,
Mhm.
but you cannot, that is something that will stay with you forever. Now, depression, very curable. Bipolar, schizophrenic, you cannot get rid of it. It's
Mm.
always going to be there because your brains, you have multiple personalities in your brain.
Mhm.
So one minute I can be cool with you, the next minute I don't like you. And that's how bipolar works.
Mm. So isn't bipolar a form of depression now? Or is it
It comes from depression.
okay? Okay. Yeah. My next question, what are some of the skills and qualities to look for when interviewing a CNA? In other words, if I had a relative perhaps who was dealing with dementia,
Mhm.
some of the qualities I need to look for when I'm interviewing a CNA.
Oh, I would have to feel that you have empathy for my situation. For let's just use dementia, okay? I have to know that you understand what comes with dementia, okay? Because you have to understand, depending on where they're at in their dementia, they can be verbally abusive, right? They don't mean to, but it just comes off as you're not going to touch me. You have to make sure that they can handle this type of different behaviors. And another thing, you have to come in and introduce yourself to this person that you're working with every day. Every day is a new day for, people with dementia or Alzheimer's, right? So when I come in every day, I have to remind this person that I work with, it's me, how you doing? But luckily, they remember my face. They can never tell you my name, but they know my face, right? And I would also look for knowledge. How much knowledge does this person have on this terrible disease that my loved one has? Because the more knowledge they have, the more they can keep you updated. And the more they can tell you what's going to happen later on down the road, so you can try to prepare yourself for what's coming. Those are the main things that I would look for: knowledge, empathy, and you can separate your home life from work life. You definitely have to do that. That's number one. Um, you have to make sure they're reliable. Not, I'm going to come to work today and not tomorrow. Because once this person gets used to you, they're the only one they're going to want to help them. They're going to trust you. At first, it's going to be hard, but you have to gain their trust. So reliable, knowledge of the situation, empathy, and keep home life and work separated. That's the main things I would look for.
Okay. And how can I emotionally prepare myself to take care of a loved one with mental illness?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest. It's nothing that you can ever prepare yourself for. And
Hmm.
I'm going to tell you this because no matter how much you try to prepare yourself, every day is a new challenge. So it's not like I can mentally be prepared for what I'm going to come into tomorrow because I don't know. So you may wake up today and, your loved one may be okay. I'm okay today. I can do this and I can do that for myself. But when I wake up tomorrow, you have absolutely no knowledge of what you're doing. And so every day is a different day. So honestly, and I'm going to be honest, you cannot prepare yourself. You cannot mentally prepare yourself because you never know what's going to take place.
Which is why when you said earlier, when you're interviewing a caretaker, you want to make sure that they're proactive and they know the craft, because they actually help you be proactive and know what's to come and kind of relieve that, fear of the unknown in your mind.
So let me ask you, and I may have asked you this earlier, but maybe I'm going to ask it a different way. Um, are there different degrees of mental illness? In other words, can I have a little bit of mental illness and not have, or could it be, someone who has full-blown mental illness and then someone who maybe just from time to time, has episodes or suffers uh, from mental illness? Have you seen degrees of it? Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It just depends, like, because like I said, it's a chemical imbalance. So if they wake up in a good mood, you're more than likely going to have a good, pretty much, I'm just going to say morning. But when they go back and they lay down and they get back up, it's a total different thing, right? And so you can have mild depression, right? And be okay.
Mhm.
You can live your normal life.
Mhm.
But if you have that moderate to severe depression, you know, it's a different situation. It's harder. Um, Same with schizophrenic and bipolar. You can be schizophrenic, but it can be controlled if you're
Mhm.
your medication and you do it daily. You can't take your medicine today and not take it tomorrow and be okay. You have to be consistent. I mean, it has to be consistent. Same with dementia and Alzheimer's.
And
I
and the
just
reason
thought of,
why I asked,
go ahead,
uh,
B.
go ahead, man.
No, I
Go
just
ahead.
thought of the other one. You said chemical imbalance. Postpartum depression would be considered uh in that category as well, right? I mean, I remember experiencing it when after I had my children, and it was real. I mean, you
It
do
is.
feel like,
Mhm.
you are disconnected, you're overwhelmed. I believe we could probably put postpartum in that as well.
And it is.
Well,
And and I may explain to you about postpartum because I had that with my oldest son. But I lost my dad when I was 8 months pregnant with my oldest son. And so I didn't
hmm,
properly grieve, the way I should have because I was pregnant, right? Um, as soon as I had my baby though, I felt it. Um, and the doctor said, don't leave that baby with her. Do not leave that baby with her because she does have postpartum depression.
hmm.
And it is real. And a lot of times when you have postpartum depression, you go through something while you're pregnant that you don't really grieve like you should, like you ought to, or handle it like you're supposed to, until after you have your child. And then when you have your child, you're already going through all these different hormonal changes because you just gave birth. And yes, postpartum depression is very real.
You
Um,
know, and I asked that question about the degrees because sometimes there can be an incident that took place,
mhm,
or in our lives,
yes.
losing of a loved one, you get a divorce or, you get to the point where you lost a job or what have you.
Mhm.
And I would assume that that's kind of temporary. But what we're talking about for the most part is like long-term depression and the chemical imbalance. But I think just about everybody to some degree has experienced some form of depression at some point in time in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I went through my divorce, I was definitely depressed because I didn't know nobody else, right? So I'm like, what am I, you're thinking all these things in the back of your mind. What am I going to do? Like, and you think you're okay, but you're not. You're really deep down. But what helped me get through that depression, and I went through it for 2 years. I went through it. I never went to a therapist. I never got medication. What I did was I grieved in my own way. I already had kids, so I'm like, I got to think about my kids. I have to get up, I have to go to work, and that's what really helped me was me working, going to work every day like I'm supposed to, making friends, just surrounding myself by positive people. And that's what actually helped me through my 2 years of depression.
Yeah, keeping it moving, keep
Yeah,
it busy.
yeah, absolutely. Because if you sit there in one place, it's going to be so hard to get over that situation that you just went through. And so
Now,
that's
one last thing, because you're talking about moving around, can exercise actually help you
absolutely,
when it comes
yes,
to, dealing with depression? If you have a consistent regimen where you exercising maybe 4 or 5 days out the week, cardio, weight training, whatever the case might be, can that be helpful as well?
absolutely. I think that's a good thing to do. Get you a gym membership and go to the gym. Yeah. You know, even going to the beach or, anything like that, because I call the beach my safe space.
Mhm.
Because, I go down there to relax. Sometimes you just have to get away. And you're
Mm.
right, exercise is definitely a great
Mhm.
way to help yourself, and it helps your self-esteem too.
So I'm going to change the subject and go back a little bit. What are some of the other things a caretaker should consider? Meaning, when they're getting ready and prepping to take care of a loved one, what are the things that they don't think of? What are some of the things that they have to be aware of that they wouldn't think of right up front?
Um, okay, so coming in, I'm just going to do a situation. So coming in, if you have someone who is moderate stage dementia, right? You have to watch out for them because you have your wanderers, which they will walk away.
Mm.
Even in the middle of the night, you have to you have to renovate your home pretty much because you have to put extra locks on the doors. Um, Anything that they may harm themselves with, as far as kitchen knives, anything sharp, you have to put away. Like you have to put somewhere where they don't know where it's at.
Mm.
Other things, of course, let's just say we don't have the money to do all these renovations, right?
Mhm.
You have to figure out some way to keep them safe if you're going to keep them in your home,
Like the bathroom,
like the
getting in
bathroom.
and out of the shower, the
Right,
bathtub.
right. You have to put maybe a arm rail up or a shower rail up so when they're standing up in that shower, they have something to hold on to. Because a lot of times when you have dementia, you lose your balance, right? And when you're an older person and you fall, it's a lot harder to recover than you and me. Like me and you may fall, but we're gonna get right back up, but they're not. So you have to make different types of changes to your home for your loved one, which can be very, very expensive. And also, medical coverage. You have to, you know,
Well, that's a
um,
nightmare.
yeah, absolutely. Like it's expensive.
You got to figure out if they even have the medical
Yeah,
coverage, and then
absolutely.
you're dealing with the system, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of times like Medicaid, let's take Medicaid for instance. Medicaid is only going to cover what they must cover, right? And so you're still paying out
Mm.
of pocket for these extra things like extra hours because Medicaid is only going to pay for a certain amount of hours, which don't leave you enough time. I got to go to work. I still have to work even though my loved one is sick. You only have 29 hours through Medicaid. You're still going to come out your pocket for the rest of them 40 hours because you need at least 40 hours a week, but Medicaid is not going to cover that. So it's always good to have a backup medical plan, for your loved one. But once they're diagnosed with any kind of disease or mental illness, sometimes it's really hard to get coverage for them. Um, and another thing, power of attorney. You need to do power of attorney for your loved one before they can't completely think for themselves because they still have to sign that piece of paper.
so it sounds like there's a lot of proactive work
Mm-hmm.
that older adults need to do when they're starting to look at taking care of their parents or
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. They should get those affairs in order prior to the earlier the better, sooner the better.
Exactly.
So explain a POA
Okay.
as a caretaker.
So power of attorney,
Mhm.
right? So once the loved one gets the power of or the caretaker gets the power of attorney for the loved one, they make all decisions for them. Because eventually, when you have dementia, eventually you know absolutely nothing. You can't read, you can't write, you can't spell, you can't do nothing for yourself. So it's always good to have a power of attorney so they can do especially your medical stuff. Um, the power of attorney has the right to put a DNR in place as well.
What's a DNR?
A DNR is a do not resuscitate. So you know this illness is terminal already, all right? So if something should happen where the person that you're taking care of falls or stops breathing or whatever the case may be, 911 is going to rush in here and try to resuscitate them. The one thing that they don't tell y'all about resuscitating your older loved one, they have to break your ribs. Okay. Um, it's always good to have, if you have a terminal illness, it's always good to have a DNR, because why would you put them through more pain? Because now they have to recover from broken ribs. And their bones are so fragile that, you know, they do the chest compressions, you can crack their chest. So you have to be, you know, you have to consider all these things when you're a power of attorney. When you take them to the doctor, the doctor talks to you, not them. Because if you don't have that power of attorney, the doctor's going to try to talk to them, and they're going to look at them like, what are you talking about? Because you don't have that power of attorney in place, they're not going to talk to you. They're going to talk to the patient. And so that's very important for anybody who's going to be a caretaker for anything. It don't necessarily have to be dementia. It could be for anything. It's always good to get that in place.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to start this segment talking about some myths that are surrounding mental illness.
One of them is mental health problems are uncommon. Fact is, mental health conditions are actually more common than you think. About 1 in 5 adults in the US experience a mental health condition in a given year. It's important to remember that mental health exists as a continuum, and everyone can experience challenges with their mental health well-being at some point.
Another myth is the mental illness is a sign of weakness or a character flaw. And that's what we were talking about earlier, like, you know, that myth. The fact of the matter is mental health conditions are not the result of personal weaknesses, lack of willpower, or character flaws. They are complex health conditions influenced by a combination of genetic, biological, psychological, and environmental factors. Seeking help is a sign of strength and resilience.
And people with mental illness are violent and dangerous. This is another myth. Fact, the vast majority of people with mental illness are not violent and are more likely to be victims of a crime than perpetrators. Media portrayals often perpetuate this harmful stereotype, but it is not supported by evidence.
Another one is mental illness is a lifelong condition and people cannot recover. Some of them are terminal, but we know that with medication, you know, we can treat some of them. Many mental illness health conditions are treatable, and people can and do recover and go on a life to live life fulfilling. There are various effective treatments, including therapy, medication, and support services that can help individuals manage their symptoms and improve their quality of life. Even with serious mental illnesses, many individuals can experience significant improvement and live well-balanced lives with ongoing management. Welcome back, everyone. We are going to end this with our solutions like we always do. After all, we are solutions, not just problems. So here's some tips for caregivers. Educate yourself. Understanding dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and any other disease will help you provide better care and cope with the changes. Prioritize self-care. Ensure that you're getting enough rest, eating well, and engaging in activities you enjoy. If you're not up to par, you can't help anybody else. So you want to put a priority on making sure you're doing your self-care. Ask for help. Don't hesitate to reach out to family, friends, and the resources. We have a ton of resources that we're going to share with you in our description box on all different levels. So to check it out, and don't be afraid to reach out. Be patient and flexible. The needs of people with these illnesses and diseases will change over time and sometimes daily, on a daily basis. So adaptability is crucial. Join support groups. Connecting with others who understand the challenges can provide invaluable emotional support and practical advice. A lot of times when we get out, we realize we're not in it alone. There's so many other people that are going through the same thing we are. So don't be afraid to join support groups. This concludes today's show. We want to thank you, Crystal, for joining us here today and giving such an informative session. I appreciate you. You know I do. I appreciate you and dearly. Thank you for sharing your expertise.
Yeah, thank you, Crystal. You did a great job today. I learned quite a bit, and I'm sure our listeners will as well. And if we ever need you to come back, we really would appreciate, if you would come back at some point in time if we have a topic that we think, is something that you can provide expertise to. But thank you very much for doing a great job, and wish you the best.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Subscribers, we want to thank you for staying tuned in with us. Viewers, we need your help. We are aiming to air on iHeartRadio and a variety of other channels in 2026. We need 5,000 subscribers. That will get us on iHeartRadio, and we would like to have 5,000 subscribers by December of this year. And here's where you can assist. If you've enjoyed the show today, please subscribe and share with others you believe that will enjoy the show. We will keep you posted on our progress. Be real. You think we can start adding stats to the show and keeping everybody, the number of subscribers we got each week, like keeping everybody posted on the show? I think we can do that.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Yeah.
And if you have something to tell us, feel free to comment. We like to talk. We want to hear from you. We talk back. This is Vanessa K and B Money signing off. Until next time, keep growing and stay motivated.